call our meeting to order. We do not have anybody for public input. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3. We have our technology infrastructure projects update. We have Jonathan Forster here. Jonathan, welcome. He is our IT infrastructure manager. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing more information.
Perfect. We're just going to talk a little bit about what my team does, what I do, and then we'll talk about a few of the kind of strategic planning, what we're looking at for the future as well. So my role in the district, I ensure the technology foundation. So this is the backbone of what allows our students to use their Chromebooks, our teachers to use their laptops, iPads. That's the network, that's our data center, that's the phones that we have out in all the classrooms. We support instruction, operations, and safety. So we work with Dave a lot on safety stuff. And then we translate when either the education, the curriculum side, or the operation side comes to us and say, we need a solution that can do this. We help translate that into technology. So the first part of our team is the district network, and this is the digital backbone. So we have 2 network engineers on my team. What this provides is it connects all of the devices in the district. So this is all the behind-the-scenes equipment that helps allow all of that to happen. It enables instruction, security, when we have to do state testing. Over the summer, we had a network project, so we replaced 2,200 access points and 300, actually almost 400 switches in a matter of 2 months. So we started the last week of May, and we finished the first week of August. We were out in buildings every single day from about 8 a.m. until we finished for that day. And there was only one day we didn't do a building, so it was a very large project, but that allowed us to add some new technologies, some more security. One of the main ones, without going into the technology we're using, is you can think about the network like a highway. So before our project, we had one lane. All the traffic went over that one lane. After this project, we are able to separate that into different lanes. So now the students have a lane, the staff has a lane, security systems have a lane. The nice part is that improves our security. Those can't talk to each other, but it also improves our reliability, meaning if one of the lanes is congested, the other ones are not. They continue to flow as we need them to. The other tool that we brought in along with this project was Marvis AI. So you can think of this as a digital network partner. It watches the network, collects data, it finds a baseline of what normal is, and then it's detecting anomalies. This helps my team find issues faster and resolve those issues faster. So moving to kind of the next part of my team is what I consider the systems and core platforms. The first role we have is our systems engineer. He manages all of the devices in the district. So he ensures that security is up to date, they're getting updates, and that's on the student and the staff side. And then he helps us implement security controls. So when we need to change something on devices to ensure they're compliant with new standards, or if we find a vulnerability, he helps us push out those security updates. This is one area where we've had a lot of changes over the last 2 years. The first one was our multi-factor authentication rollout. So we rolled out and enabled multi-factor authentication for 4,400 staff accounts in just less than a year. I'll get into a little bit more details about the impacts of that, but that was a major project. We joined the K-12 domain, so we went out to every school 2 years ago now, and we sat there all day and we helped move computers over from our own domain to the state's domain, which I'll get into a little bit of details about that as well. And then lastly, we implemented a device MDM, which is a mobile device management tool, and this helps us patch these devices. And the nice thing is, that is a cloud tool, so it doesn't matter if the teachers are at the school or at home. They get updates, they get security controls, it stays the same wherever they're at. On the MFA side, this results in better security. So if a threat actor or a bad actor were to get the username and password of a teacher, they can't get into the account without also getting the code from their phone. So that keeps us more secure on our side. And then on the K-12 domain side, we were at the point where we were either going to have to purchase new equipment or make that change to the state. that allowed us to decommission that old equipment, not purchase it, and utilize what the state already has in place. So they have resources for us from the K-12 Data Center and the Bureau of Information Technology that we can now utilize on a day-to-day basis. The next role is the data center infrastructure, and we have one data center engineer. He supports our core applications, our services, and our servers that run in the back end to allow instruction to happen. He also integrates between instruction, administration, and safe use. So we had two major projects in the last 2 years on this side. We did a large hardware replacement of our data center at Central Services, and we implemented a backup solution that allows us to have immutable backups so we can't access them and nobody else can access them. The impact of this project, on the data center side, we're able to put our compute and storage systems under one house so he can have visibility into both of them. He can track where we're using, what utilization we have, if our storage is getting full, what we can do to better utilize that. And then on the backup solution, our data is protected, but it's not just protected when it's with us, it's also protected in the cloud when it's with our partner and at a secondary location. So we have multiple backups there. We did a test this year, and within just over 48 hours, we were able to completely restore our entire data center at a secondary location. So that is much faster than before. Before, that would have taken us a little over a week from the last time that we had a test on record. The last part of my team is the newest member. He's our systems administrator, and he came on when we decided to take over the phone system to move that to voice over IP. So he supports the classroom phone, he supports the offices, and as well as emergency communications. So this summer, while we were rolling out the network project, the other half of the team was rolling out the phone project. So they did 3,400 phones throughout the district in just under 2 months. They also were out there every single day pulling old phones, putting new phones in. And this brought some very nice capabilities to us and some enhancements. So the first one is what they call Enhanced 911 or E911. And there's two laws that we have to be compliant with there. There's Carey's Law, which says that anybody in one of our buildings, if they need to dial 911, they need to be able to dial it without first entering a digit. So now if anyone walks up to a phone, they can dial 911. The second one is the Ray Bombs Act, and that says that when we call the 911 dispatch, we have to be able to give them a dispatchable location of where the emergency is happening. Before, all we could do was give them the address of our school. Now we're getting to the point where, as we continue to implement this, we'll be able to get them down to a specific wing within our building on the phone call without anybody saying anything. So that gets them to the emergency faster. We're also working on integrating this with paging. We have about a third of the schools done. The other ones are still using their old phone system, but we're slowly but surely getting all of those integrated. We have easier management on our side, so now we have one tool to manage all the phones throughout the district. This also allows for asset inventory, so we know where all of our phones are, we know which ones are online, which ones are being used. And then there's a monthly cost savings. Because we are on Microsoft Teams, all of our calls between buildings, no matter what building they're in, there's not a charge for that. So the only charge are outside the organization, which has considerably cut our costs on a monthly basis. Finally, just want to talk about a little bit of strategic planning and some of the future plans that I myself am looking at and my team is. So security controls. This is something that we've been working on over the last 2 years to get a baseline in place, and now we're working to improve that. This will be on the staff side, the student side, iPads. We're making sure that we're compliant with the standards that are out there. So we're continuing to improve that. Printing is one that we've heard from staff that, especially on the MacBooks, they have a lot of issues printing. So we've been working with our data services team to improve the printing. We're working on right now implementing a new tool that's already available to us that we just haven't rolled out yet. So that'll improve that process for them. On the mobile device management, we actually just met with the vendor that we have currently. We noticed some gaps of what we were able to do with the tool before, so we've been working with them about how we can fill some of those. And those meetings have just started, so looking forward to how that goes. And then lastly, fiber. So over the summer, we did the whole network project, but that did not account for the fiber that was connecting the closets. As a process of going through all these buildings and looking at all the fiber, we noticed that we have a lot of old fiber out there that hasn't been upgraded yet. So we've started meeting with a couple of vendors to figure out how we can upgrade that, what that'll look like for the district. Any questions for me? Yeah.
I have a question. This MDM, the mobile device management upgrades, do you have some examples of what those upgrades would be?
Yeah. Yep. So when we're talking about mobile device management upgrades, some of that will be browser security. So we'll be able to implement browser security that we don't have right now. There is an encryption on our devices that we haven't fully implemented yet, that with this upgrade, we will be able to fully implement and manage those on our side. The other side of that is they have some, right now we're doing it manually, and it only works when the computer is at school. With this side, this also takes implementation when they're at home. So it doesn't matter where they're at, we're just moving that to that cloud platform to make that easier for us.
I have a question for you. So our kids have their Chromebooks, and that gives them access outside of our district to libraries, whatever. Does that create problems for us?
Say that last part one more time.
Does that create a problem for us because we can't control what they're doing?
Nope. On the Chromebook side, it's totally different. So on the Chromebook side, we already have a cloud management tool, and as well as our content filtering works from anywhere where they're at. So that does not create a problem for this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think we're good. Yeah, this was great, Jonathan. A lot of this is back office stuff, but truly without that sort of infrastructure, it doesn't allow anything else to run. So it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. I think sometimes the level of expertise that we would need to have as individuals to ask really engaging and complex and complicated questions, frankly, we just don't have that. And that's why we have you, Jonathan. So to our knowledge, it's working. That switch over to the state, have you had any glitches with that? Okay. And your use of calling these different lanes, we started with the idea that this was an information highway. So calling it the lanes was a good analogy to help those of us back in the 90s,
Yeah.
80s, when this was a concept.
And I would just like reiterate, taking on the network upgrade, the access points, and then a phone upgrade on top of that, and moving us all forward, that was a big lift last summer. Things change us hard along the way, but I think now 6 months out, there's a lot of really good things that have come from it. I think you'll see staff using their laptops to make calls and stuff now when they're conferencing, and our ability to use some of our other services has made it more accessible. So it's helped in our communication, I would say. And then I think the access point network upgrade also provided a guest network side for events and stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about that. We know we have kids involved in activities. They travel to and from school, sometimes inside district, outside of district, and we know kids are trying to do some work and things like that in their downtime between games. And so there was a guest network that was opened up too as a result of this.
Yeah, so we added 2 features for guests. During the day, we now have a presenter network. So when someone comes in, they can request access from the front office to get access to our network. That's for presenters during the day. And then at 3:30, that switches over to our guest network, which someone fills out a basic form and they get access to the guest network. That could be students, that could be like this weekend we have debate tournaments going on, so the judges will be on there. That offers that. The nice thing is we also put in security in place, so although we can offer that for them, they can't get to any of our internal resources while still providing them access to the internet.
There we go, the lanes again.
Yep.
Quick question, although this might not be pertinent to this particular report. I'm noticing I still get links within the district for sometimes Zoom and sometimes Teams. And you had mentioned that you all are going to Teams. Is there a way with some of these apps, and just from an organizational standpoint too, with communication with coaches or teachers, have we tried to come up with just a handful of apps, or are we still leaving that up to the individuals?
And
And I could probably speak to that a little bit. So as part of a few different things that we have for communication platforms in the district, we do have the district apps, websites, and extensions approval process. We do have generally Teams is our go-to communication platform. We do still have some other communication platforms that are still considered acceptable. And sometimes those are for use with outside vendors who may use those platforms as well. So some other districts or other vendors may use Zoom or Google Meet or other platforms like that. So we still have vetted those for security and just in usage cases like that. So we just still do make them available. We, as John did mention though, our systems administrator who's running the phone system has been going around and doing trainings with staff over the course of this year to help them get more familiar with Teams so that they can just be more implemented and just integrated into a single like pane of glass there. So we're not using and supporting unnecessary things. But so some of those things will still continue to be used, but we are seeing increased usage of Teams as people get more comfortable with it. But some of that is just time and comfort and training.
Understood. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you again. Yeah, we'll also see you. Mr. Veek, I understand you've got a legislative update for us.
Yes, I do. The plan to avoid a really, really long meeting Monday is to go through what we've analyzed since our last meeting. We'll hopefully just use the same rules. We won't talk about dead bills, and we'll start where we left off. And I will update on key bills, even if there aren't in the rotation here. Some will come up because they're new key bills, but some are old. So if that's good, that's where I'll start. And then we'll probably get through them, I think, today. And we'll for sure leave at least 10 minutes at the end for you guys to do your reports.
Or 15.
Yeah, I'm guessing we can be done by 1:45, yeah, with this part. If not, you can just stop me. We'll just do a Monday night. So I would start at 11. Oh, and Shelley is going to run this because I didn't do a very good job last time. And did you put up the whatever that thing's called, the QR code, in case people at home want to follow along? Yeah, there it is. And while that's still up there, I'll go back to two key bills that we already did, but just an update on them on the House side. We're starting on the House side. The governor's state aid bill is just sitting. It hasn't moved yet. That's House Bill 1051. We have amend on that because it's got the 0% increase. 1085 is a bill. That's the bill that will provide free meals for kids on reduced. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. 1082. So, and that bill is in Appropriations Committee, and I think it's got a vote today or tomorrow, pretty soon, sometime this week anyway. So that one, that one got high praise in House Ed and went over there. So we'll see. Appropriations Committee is sometimes a little bit different than the Ed Committee. So we'll see how that goes. So those are two key bills that we've already talked about that I wanted to give that update on. So I'm going to start now on 1143. And if it's key, I'll talk a little bit more about why we oppose or support or neutral. But if it's not key, I'm not going to do that unless you guys want to talk about it. Then just stop me on it. So House Bill 1143 authorizes the possession and self-administration of nasal glucagon by a student on school property and at school-related events. We oppose that bill. And that bill passed out of the House Committee, Human Services Committee, and 12-0. House Bill 1168 provides a property tax credit for certain educational expenses. The credit is up to $1,000 for children 5 to 19. can be used for a myriad of educational expenses related to homeschooling, private schools, or post-secondary schools. It will reduce the local effort of the public school district. The individual receiving the tax credit does not need to be a parent of the child the credit is for. So you can get it up on behalf of somebody else and pay their expenses. Yes, we have that as oppose. Yeah, sure.
I want to go back to 1143 for just a second. There isn't any age on that bill, correct?
That's right.
So a student who needed this drug, who was in kindergarten, would be able to carry it him or herself? The way it's written?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the opposition is we have early childhood, so a 3-year-old could carry it, and there's no age limit to that. And some of the things, if the students need that, they're going to start showing symptoms that they may not be really able to apply it to themselves. And so we have staff in the building that are trained that can do that and can help support the kids in that manner.
And what do we learn at that early age? Sharing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so on these, like that one, if you want to talk more about them, man, just let me know, and we will know. I get it. It was the first one. House Bill 1172 would terminate certain school district excess tax levies, specifically school opt-outs passed before the state law was changed to require a time limit on opt-outs. The bill would not affect us, as we have no opt-outs prior to the time of the time limits. But we oppose it because it's kind of like you're changing the rules. You set these rules up, and then once again, or talk about this coming up here on another bill, but you're only doing it for schools, which is...
Do you know how many schools that would impact across the state?
I think it's like 10 or something like that.
Can't be very many.
But those schools I know are opposed to this bill. So yeah, it's not a ton of money, and it's not like the opt-outs grow either. You pass an opt-out for $50,000 forever, it's $50,000 forever. An opt-out passed in 98 for $50,000 or $100,000 is not anywhere near worth $50,000 or $100,000 in 98. It really seems kind of strange, and it seems like some people are going after schools because other entities pass opt-outs too. It isn't just school districts, and all the bills are aimed at schools that have to do with limiting opt-outs. House Bill 1187 adds coaches to the list of mandatory reporters. We support that. House Bill 1201 authorizes the use of bingo games, lotteries, and pull tab devices by booster clubs. We are neutral on that. Maybe Dan wants to add some comment.
Yeah, it just seems like, as the comment says, forcing to rely on gambling to fund student programming seems contradictory to some extent. So, and right now they have some mechanisms in place to do some fundraising. It's just this is the next level, and so where's the line drawn?
So why are we neutral on that?
I think on that one, I believe there's some other areas throughout the state that have a little different view on that. Our position recommendation of neutral is we have some things that go on, but not to bingo games and lotteries and pull tabs. There are some other school districts, so it's keep it at the local control. There may be some school districts or some areas out there that may choose to have that. Right now, ours is that we would say no.
So even if this would become a law, we would still have local control over our own booster clubs to say what they could or could not do for fundraising?
Yeah, our booster clubs, and when they work closely with the schools and our fundraising events for athletics and activities, they do submit that fundraising sheet to the schools, and it would get authorized by the administration to allow that fundraising activity or not to allow it.
Okay. House Bill 1205 is a key bill. It amends the manner of calculating state aid to general ed. Basically what it does is it says the index factor, instead of being the lesser of 3% or inflation, will be the greater of 3% or inflation. Our position statement says state aid, we support it. State aid historically lags significantly behind the rest of state government. This bill would help to close that gap. We included a slide from the governor's budget address that he gave in December, and it shows about 5 different groups and then another, and everybody's up 20 or so percent. Medicaid is up 98%, and schools are about half the rest of, even the lowest of the others. So this clearly don't keep up. Every year we hear we get the same as everybody else. We don't. And so this is actually a pretty good bill. It's good. I don't, it's in the education committee right now and it hasn't been acted on yet. House Bill 1206 clarifies the use of public funds for the purpose of alternative instruction. Basically says they can't be used for alternative instruction. I thought that was the law, but I guess it clarifies that. We support that. House Bill 1213 makes a $2.5 million appropriation for statewide educator retention initiative. Both public and accredited private schools are eligible. We would suggest amending the bill. So that's just public schools. House Bill 1217 limits the use of taxpayer funds and resources by a public education employer to support a labor organization or affiliate and provide a penalty therefore. Brett's here, but he tells me that means we couldn't even collect dues for the unions through their payroll. So we oppose that bill. House Bill 1218 creates a new class of non-agricultural property for purposes of taxation. And it's to provide a penalty, therefore, I guess if you fake it, replaces commercial property classes with commercial investor and commercial operator property classes. We're neutral. Really has no substantial impact on schools if it passes. HB 1225 enhances, it's just a placeholder, enhances public education. It's for when they think of a bill later on after the deadline, they can put that on there. We're neutral. House Bill 1239 requires that the Department of Ed provides for the compensation of a teacher employed by a school district. Yeah, we oppose this. This basically has the Department of Ed employing all teachers in the state. So we are opposed to that. House Bill 1241 increases the amount of value exempt from property taxes under a tax relief program for disabled vets. I think there's a couple of these bills like that. We're neutral on it. It's negligible effect on school funding. It's very negligible. House Bill 1243 requires the display of the state motto in public schools and provide for associated legal representation if you get sued for providing it. We oppose it. We already have the national motto per a state requirement a few years ago and would need to make new displays for each building. Somebody said about this bill that maybe every 10 years they should just come out with a bill of what we have to display for the next 10 years instead of doing this as they go. Wish it was me, but I didn't think of that. House Bill 1249 amends provisions pertaining to the School Finance Accountability Board and the process by which a recommendation of the board is approved. We're neutral on that. House Bill 1251 creates the community-based providers methodology supplement fund and creates the target teacher salaries supplement fund and provides for a transfer of unobligated balances. So those are two of the big three, the community providers and schools. The idea is if there's a bunch of money left over like there was this year, it would go into this supplement fund and it would go out to the school districts. We support it. I don't have a lot of hope for it. A, I don't think it'll pass. And B, if it did, we have an education enhancement fund out there right now. It was passed a long, long time ago. You know what it does? It helps fund it just helps fund the state aid formula. That's what becomes of these funds. But it's a well-meaning bill. 1261 provides a $500 tax credit for owner-occupied property. and makes an appropriation. Therefore, we oppose it because we support the governor's bill, which allows the counties in the 5, 6, or 7, the county governments in the 5, 6, or 7 counties that are being adversely affected by a rapid rise in valuation to do a sales tax and pay for that, rather than taking money and applying it to all 66 districts in the state. So there's a few bills like this, you're gonna hear me say the same thing on that, but we're opposing it because we support the governor's plan. And the last House bill, 1266, proposes to make the Hatch Act applicable to all public employees in the state, as well as any appointed positions. So basically, and if you have questions, the experts here, Brett, he can talk about it, but basically it says you can't, we couldn't write this if this passed. We couldn't be talking about it right now. We certainly couldn't have our superintendent out lobbying for it, against bills right now. And it applies to all state employees, all local governments, and everybody. So nobody could use any taxpayer funds to support or oppose a bill. So the legislature just make their decisions based on what private lobbyists tell them and what they think. And folks that hear at Cracker Barrels, I guess. So we oppose that. Questions on any of those House bills? On the Senate side, there are a few key bills before we get to, we're going to start on 138, I think. Senate Bill 58 was an oppose. It was taking all mill levies to 0. It died really fast. Senate Bill 85 is on the House floor today. It's the bill to make, I referenced this earlier on another bill, school districts and only school districts, opt-outs automatically have to go to a public vote. And the dates of the votes are set by the legislature as well. Once again, that bill, there's counties, cities, fire districts, water districts, they can all opt out, and it only affects school districts. And so this is a key bill, and we oppose it. Somebody brought up in testimony, an opponent, that well, you know, if it's such a good, well, they brought it up on the Senate side. This is on the House side. So on the Senate side, they brought up, well, that doesn't apply to everybody that opts out. And the question was, or the answer was, well, if you think it'll help pass it, I'd be willing to put it on there. Well, that tells me that next year county's next, and the year after that, the city's next. Pick them off one at a time. But then and then it's like, I picked schools because schools spend the most property taxes. So on the House side, then the other day in committee, then it was brought up by opponents that, well, if it's all about the most money, the state government spends the most money. They just spend more than all the schools, all the counties, and all the cities combined. So why doesn't the state, when it passes its general bill, why doesn't that have to go to an opt-out vote? And the answer was, well, I think it's 105 legislators is a lot different than 5, 7, or 9 school board members. That was kind of the answer to that. So I just looked up a stat, and they are quite different, and I'll just give you one. Since 2008 up through 2024, state aid formula, so school spending, that's the bulk of the school spending, has gone up 40% cumulative. And yeah, state government is a lot different with its 105 legislators. They're up 99% in the sales tax, 99% to 40, and they're worried about opt-outs and opt-outs going up too much. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do bills, and then there's a lot of them in the legislature, and this is probably the worst one. So yeah, we oppose that. It's on the floor today. The House, if it passes today, it goes to the governor, and the hope would be for a veto, but we don't know. We don't know yet. And then the other one was 96, Senate Bill 96, which is that governor's plan that we consider a key bill, and we support it. We just talked about that one a second ago. So we'll go to 138, which is where we left off. Senate Bill 138 revises the time which a recount for school board election must be completed before the annual meeting. Actually, that's a little out of date because depending on how you hold your meetings, you could have the new board members be seated before the annual meeting now because they changed the elections and the rules on when the board members are seated. So this should have been a law 2 years ago maybe, but we're neutral on it. It's not going to affect us either way, so we're not too worried about it. 144, provide property tax relief to certain senior owners of owner-occupied single-family dwellings. We're neutral on that. We'll have very, very, if any, effect on our budgets. Senate Bill 157 is a key bill. It amends the school funding formula to provide for the use of an average fall enrollment, the average of the 2 years prior, or the current, if you're growing, if it's higher, the current enrollment, to determine local need. We support that. You know, we got 1.25% last year. We were supposed to get 3. We were slated, unless something happens, to get 0% this year. We're supposed to get 2.54. Any little bit to help helps, and so we are supporting that bill. Senate Bill 158 amends the manner in which a school district determines, oh, I'm sorry, I just said that one. Senate Bill 174 makes an appropriation of $5 million to defray the operational costs of school districts. Yes, we support that. It would be, for instance, the governor's budget included 1% to help with the benefits for state employees. This $5 million wouldn't be 1%, but at least something, and to help schools out with funding some of their costs, and it's one time. SB 182 addresses the tax. That's a placeholder about taxes, so we're neutral on that. We don't know what it is yet. Senate Bill 183 modifies requirements for public notice of a hearing prior to a vote to impose an excise tax levy. This includes mailing or emailing it's an excess tax levy. This includes mailing or emailing every taxpayer in the tax district a notice of the possible increase 20 days before the already required public hearing. So we say amend, get rid of that part. Local entities already do most of the items required in this bill, but a 20-day notice of the meeting ahead of time is not a bad idea. However, requiring an electronic notice is not defined and could be interpreted as an email to each homeowner, which would be virtually impossible. That should be taken out of the bill. There's a lot of do as I say, not as I do going on up here this session. But this isn't the worst of those bills. It's, you know, if you want to give more notice, that's fine. But, you know, sending a notice to every person, I don't know how you do that. We just put it on our website and we can publish it in the paper like we do with all our public hearings, and that should be enough. Senate Bill 184 enhances public education, another placeholder. 187 defines a non-public school. Part of the definition includes the right to receive funds. So we have a pose on that for that reason. And, you know, it's technically against the state constitution, and nobody's defeated that provision in our constitution yet, so maybe we should follow it. Senate Bill 190 provides for the rights of a parent. We're opposed to that. It seems like a nice bill. All parents have rights. But most of the bill that relates to schools is already covered by existing law. Additionally, school boards already have policies for addressing parent concerns, complaints. This is appropriately handled by local school boards, i.e. local control. Senate Bill 195 repeals the expiration of a reduction in certain gross receipts. So they're supposed to go, the state sales tax is supposed to go up 0.3 of a cent in a year, and this would repeal that. So they don't have enough money to fund us now, and they want to give away 0.3 of a cent. So we oppose that. Increase the use of a cell phone by a student or restrict during instructional time. We're neutral on that. We already have a policy on that. Senate Bill 199 establishes a new fund to provide property tax relief and annually deposit 25%. The state can't afford the state aid formula as it is. This takes money out of that, the ability to do that. We support the governor's proposal. We're opposed to that. Senate Bill 200 amends the state aid formula for general education and SPED. It essentially eliminates the index factor. The idea is instead of having this fake index factor, year in and year out, go in and actually just set a number. So you can't say, oh, we gave you more than you had coming, or we gave you what you had coming, you should be grateful. I think it's interesting. We had it as opposed, and we're not going to take any action on this, but I think we're going to change it to neutral. I was like, at least if you have it, they have to actually pass a bill to not fund you, but they don't seem to have a problem doing that. So the bill is meant as a good thing, to always have a discussion about it. But so I originally had it as opposed, but I think we're going to change that to neutral. We'll talk about that Monday night. And I think I got one more minute left. Wind farms, keep those in school districts. Our money goes into, that type of money is supposed to go into the formula now as local effort. So we oppose that. So if you get a wind farm, you're lucky. If you have a bank franchise tax, you're not. We got the bank franchise tax, we don't have wind farm. Senate Bill 212, homeowner tax reduction fund. Again, we support the governor's plan. 213 create the building opportunity through out of school time program. It's kind of like 21st century learning. It's after school programming. It's probably, we have that as opposed because we don't think the money, they don't have the money to fund the formula. Let's do that first, is the thought there. 216, limit annual valuation increases on owner-occupied and single-family dwellings and provide an exception for a mill rate. The bill is virtually unworkable. It goes backwards. It's trying to go backwards to 2020. It's not going to work. So we would say amend. You can do it going forward if you want to do that, but you're not going to be able to do that backwards. There's 2 Senate joint resolutions. We can do those Monday night if you want. If you want to get into, that's a good cutoff point. We're through all the bills. And there's more bills probably in today. We haven't looked at those yet, but that'll be it, other than maybe a couple out of committee bills tomorrow. So there won't be a ton of bills Monday night. We'll do these 2 joint resolutions. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd. See, for the benefit, if Senate Bill 85 has not already been moved on, we have some media here, so I think it would be important, Todd, if we draw out a few of the nuances with Senate Bill 85 in the event that it was not, there wasn't time to have it heard and voted on the floor today. So I specifically, that the bill is being used to kind of frame, it's being framed as a response to property tax, but in fact, it is not going to reduce the cost of educating a student. So it's not solving for the property tax issue in any real meaningful way. In fact, the property tax force has commented that we're already running school budgets in a very lean way. So it's not solving for that. I think it's important, and you touched on it briefly, Todd. So if I'm saying anything that is not equate with the data that you have or the numbers.
No, I agree. And I would say, I think it's extremely ironic. This bill's been up there twice. It failed last year. It's up there this year, and it's close to, I mean, it's got it. And they do it in the 2 years when they didn't fund us. They funded us 0% this year and less than half of what we were supposed to get last year. And then they try to make it much more difficult to opt out. It's a strange relation between the committee members the other day that were against it were just laughing about that. Yeah, we're doing such a good job of funding education that we're going to make it even harder to opt out.
Right. Well, and the original intent of the opt-out was to fill that gap between the funding. I think it's important to draw on the historical perspective and lens of why that was written into the statute originally back in the 90s.
95, yeah. And that was the thing. And it was for all, here, we're going to limit you to this. If you can't get by with it, you can opt out. If you opt out, it can be referred. And then they made it a little more difficult, and then a few years later, you have to put big, giant ads in the paper so it won't slip by anybody, because apparently some districts or some water district or whatever were trying to, barely make it noticeable that they were opting out. So they got that covered, and now, for whatever reason, we're picking on school districts and avoiding the others.
So there's two pieces to that. Number one, the opt-out was for communities to take their individual issues that they're having, whether it's growth or they need new buildings. And so in a timely way locally, people could respond to the community needs through their elected officials, which were the school board, okay? And then number two, it sends a very dangerous precedent in that if they're going to take that away from school boards, what is going to come next? Cities, counties. Historically, the state has supported local control, and that is for a very good and intentional reason, and that's because locally the elected officials are closest to the people. We have to answer to the community members. So this takes the decision making and removes it to a level that it was never intended to be at for very good reasons.
Agreed.
And then the last piece is that it's a true distraction. It will cost our district roughly about $63,000 to run the election, and that does not include any of the printing costs or the mailings or the ads.
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, there's a cost to doing it,
and significant delay in responding to the community needs.
I mean, it sets the 2 dates you can have an election. You can't, and one of them is before we would even approve our budget for the year.
Yeah. Those are a few nuances that are really important to point out, especially if this hasn't already moved, that we can get something out to the public and to our legislators.
I'm not sure about the facts, but I think there were only 14 opt-outs proposed last year in the state of South Dakota.
I think I heard the ASBSD say that.
5 of them were contested, and all 5 of them still passed.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I heard too.
And it also could be that this bill, Senate Bill 85, really sort of conflicts with what the governor's plan is in helping to solve for the property tax. I mean, the two are not working in tandem necessarily with identifying certain counties that they want to solve for some of the property tax.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily looks like that. But.
Yeah. Okay. Any other feedback for the good of the whole? Todd, thank you to you, to Gail and Elizabeth, and also our executive team that helps to go through the bills and identify specific language that may or may not impact the district. So that goes recognized. Do we have any board committee updates? We will move on to agenda item 5. Gail?
Just quickly, I sent you an informative email concerning the second read on the policies that are coming to us Monday night. So if you have any questions or concerns, please get back to me. And then secondly, on the southeast side, I know we're in K-12, but on the southeast policy side, we will have a lot of policies to go through. We are right now in the process of running through those and adding comments, and so expect that next month.
Sioux Falls Sports Authority, they're winding up to host the Summit League, which is a big deal. So I think that the people of Sioux Falls really enjoy it. It's been hosted here for a long time because they've done such a great job. On the Access for All, we haven't had a meeting for the last 2 we haven't met, so I have a lot to say about that. And Howard Wood committee that we put together, that's kind of in action. We're going to postpone some of those meetings till later this spring. So that's all I got there.
Nan and I are in calendar committee. I guess all that I have to share is that we had good discussion at our table. I don't know if you had similar discussions about this, on how the in-between time for students is really challenging for a lot of school buildings to get from one classroom to the next. I know this is an age-old conversation, but they were talking about how many minutes it could add to our school year to extend in between period time, so people have a little more opportunity to go to their locker, use the bathroom, all the things that I know my sixth grader doesn't really get a chance to do because she goes from the basement to third floor, and so she ends up carrying all of her stuff and not having time to go to the locker. So we were just having good quality conversation on what would it take and how many days would it add if we did add even 1 minute to our transition time. And I just thought that was a very real, eye-opening conversation for some of the people who thought it would be a very easy fix. And then when I told them it would result to days added to our calendar, they're like, oh, never mind. So still good to talk about. I know that's tough, but that was calendar committee. And then I do want to give Dr. Nold a shout out for a presentation that he did with a group of business leaders that I was at, presenting on third grade reading levels and its natural implications in our community and how business leaders can do their part in stepping out and supporting, like by adopting a school or mentoring, different avenues for them to get their hands a little bit more dirty and seeing that they can actually uplift our students. And when we are in, I would call this a crisis for budgeting, that our business community can really take lead on being supportive and helping our young learners. So it was really good. Dr. Knoll did a fantastic job. He got the highest praise from a lot of people, and Counselor Rich McCurris asked if he could do that presentation everywhere. And so he might be, he might have a new side gig, but it went really well. So wanted to give him a shout out for that. Anything from calendar that I missed for you?
No, maybe you could speak a little bit on that we're not doing half days, we're trying to do full days and being considerate of people being able to plan around childcare. Where I got challenging it was a half day here and half day there, but again, piece those together, which has gotten really good feedback. So we have a committee that's engaged in listening to feedback and trying to implement changes where it makes sense. I don't think we can foresee any big sweeping changes with the calendar, although it's still being discussed. Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you all. And we look forward to seeing everybody next Monday when we have our school board meeting. And we will adjourn.